You ever sign the papers on a dream property, only to find out someone else already thinks they own it? That's exactly what happened to me. I had just bought a desert ranch, miles from the nearest subdivision. Nothing but cactus, sand, and wide open skies. To me, it was freedom. To her, it was a chance to play queen of the desert. And her name? Karen, the self-appointed HOA president of a community that didn't even exist out here. The day I drove up with my truck full of tools, I noticed something was wrong. My gate, which should have been locked with the brand new padlock I'd installed after signing the papers, was wide open. At first, I thought maybe the real estate agent had forgotten to close it. But as I pulled in, my jaw nearly hit the steering wheel. There were patio umbrellas planted in the sand, lawn chairs lined up like it was a poolside cabana. And right in the middle of it all, sipping iced tea from a glass that definitely wasn't mine, sat Karen. Blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, clipboard in hand. She waved at me like I was trespassing on her land. "Excuse me," she called, striding over with all the authority of a sheriff. "This area is part of Desert Ridge Estates, and as HOA president, I'll need you to sign the community guidelines." She slapped a packet of papers against my chest before I could even step out of my truck. Now, I knew exactly what I had purchased. The ranch had been abandoned for 20 years, repossessed by the bank, and finally listed for sale. No mention of an HOA, no active developments anywhere near it. Just raw land with a busted house, perfect for me to renovate and finally live the quiet life I wanted. But Karen wasn't interested in facts. She launched into a speech about how she'd been maintaining the property for years, and that my purchase meant I was automatically under her jurisdiction. She even tried to fine me, yes, fine me on the spot for unauthorized entry. I laughed at first, thinking it was some sort of bizarre prank. But when she threatened to evict me from my own land, I realized this was more than delusion. Karen had set her sights on my ranch, and she wasn't planning on leaving without a fight. And that's when I knew this desert wasn't as empty as I thought. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I stood my ground and showed Karen the deed, she'd back off. But Karen wasn't the type to back off. The very next morning, when I returned with more supplies, I discovered she'd doubled down. My ranch, looked like it had been hijacked by a budget resort crew overnight. A row of tiki torches lined the driveway. A pop-up canopy stood right where I planned to park my truck. And get this, she had dragged in a kiddie pool, filled it with water, and labeled it with a hand-painted sign. Desert Ridge HOA Pool Number 1. I was stunned. She was acting like this barren land was a luxury subdivision. A few folding chairs circled the pool, and a cooler of sodas sat in the shade. Karen strutted over in a sun hat and cover-up as if she owned the place. "Oh good, you're here," she said, waving like we were partners in crime. "We need to discuss your HOA dues. The first payment is $600, covering maintenance, landscaping, and community events." "Community events?" I asked, incredulous. "Karen, there's no community. This is desert wasteland and my property. Here, look." I unfolded the official deed from my glove compartment and held it out. "This says I own every inch of this land. You don't get to play HOA president out here." But she just smirked, arms crossed, not even glancing at the paperwork. "Paper doesn't change reality," she said smugly. "The reality is, I've been running this community for years. Everyone respects my authority. And now that you're here, you're part of it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her, flat out, she needed to leave or I'd call the sheriff. That's when her tone changed. Her friendly fake smile dropped, and she leaned in close. "Go ahead," she whispered. "Call them. I've already filed a complaint against you for trespassing. When they show up, you'll be the one in trouble." That's when it hit me. Karen wasn't just delusional, she was strategic. She knew how to play the system, or at least thought she did. If the cops came and found us arguing, with her setup making it look like she lived there, I'd be the outsider. So I changed tactics. Instead of shouting, I started documenting. Photos, videos, timestamps. Every ridiculous thing she had set up. Because something told me this fight wasn't going to end with words. And I was right. Because by the end of that week, Karen wasn't just squatting. She was advertising my ranch as a desert resort. By the third week, I wasn't just dealing with Karen. I was dealing with her guests. I rolled up one morning with lumber for repairs, only to find 3 cars parked haphazardly in the dirt. Families unloading coolers, kids running around, a couple spreading out beach towels. For a split second, I thought I'd taken a wrong turn. But no, it was my ranch all right. Only now it had been rebranded. Hanging between 2 mesquite trees was a banner, painted in sloppy letters. "Welcome to Desert Ridge Resort, HOA managed." Karen was at the center of it all. Clipboard in one hand, sun hat angled just right, directing traffic like she was running a hotel. She had even roped off areas of my land with cheap plastic chains, labeling them private cabins and community pool access. When she saw me, she smiled like a car salesman closing a deal. Perfect timing. These are our new members. You'll want to stay out of the pool area until after the welcome barbecue. Members? I snapped. Karen, these are trespassers. This is my property and you're charging people to use it? One of the men, holding a cooler, turned to me and said, "Wait, this isn't part of a resort?" His wife frowned, kids tugging at her sleeve. She said it was private land with community amenities, she added. Karen waved dismissively. Don't listen to him. He's new here and doesn't understand the rules yet. Now, let's all relax. This is a family-friendly space. I couldn't believe it. She had lured strangers out here, taken their money, and turned my land into her personal business. I pulled out my phone, snapping pictures of the banner, the setup, the cash box on her folding table. This is fraud, Karen. You're trespassing, and you're scamming these people. That's when she snapped. Her fake smile vanished, replaced with fire. You don't understand how this works, she hissed. You can't fight the HOA. I am the HOA. Out here, my word is law. She grabbed her clipboard, waving it like a badge of authority. These families came here for peace, not drama. If you make a scene, you'll be the one they turn on. For a moment, I looked around, eyes on me, uncertain, waiting to see who to believe. If I shouted, I'd look like the crazy one. But if I stayed quiet, Karen would keep tightening her grip. So I did the only thing that made sense. I called her bluff. I told everyone there exactly who I was. And then I called the sheriff. The sheriff's truck rolled up about 30 minutes later, dust swirling in the heat. By then, Karen had rallied her guests like a cult leader prepping them for battle. She stood tall by her makeshift resort office table, clipboard clutched like a holy relic. The families looked nervous. A few had already packed their cars, clearly realizing they'd been duped. But Karen still had a few loyal followers, mostly, because they didn't want to admit they'd been conned out of money. Sheriff Dawson stepped out, hat tipped low, squinting at the scene like it was the strangest call he'd had in years. All right, what's going on here? He asked, voice steady but firm. Before I could say a word, Karen marched forward, jabbing her finger at me. That man is trespassing! He broke into HOA property and is harassing community members. I demand you remove him immediately. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. Because I had the deed, the photos, the videos, all of it ready. The sheriff turned to me. And you are? I handed him the deed, crisp and official, straight from the county records office. Name's Daniel Reed. I bought this ranch legally. Been documenting this circus since day one. She's not HOA, she's a squatter running a scam. Dawson studied the papers, then looked around at the tiki torches, the kiddie pool, the ridiculous banner. His face tightened like he was trying not to laugh. He turned back to Karen. Ma'am, you want to explain why you're charging folks to camp on land you don't own? Karen's eyes went wide, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. No, this is a misunderstanding. I've managed this property for years. Everyone knows me as president of the Desert Ridge HOA. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, there is no Desert Ridge HOA. And even if there was, this man owns the deed. You're trespassing, plain and simple. That's when the families started whispering. A couple of them walked over to the sheriff, showing him receipts, cash payments Karen had collected. One woman shook her head, muttering, "She told us this was legit." Karen panicked. She dropped her clipboard, pointing wildly at me. "He forged those papers. He's lying. Arrest him!" But Dawson had heard enough. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for trespassing, fraud and unlawful business practices. Hands behind your back." The sight of Karen being handcuffed, screaming about her authority, was the sweetest justice I'd ever seen. As they drove her away, I looked over my desert ranch, still a mess, but finally mine again. No more fake HOA, no more scams. Just me, the sand, and the silence I'd been looking for. For once, the desert felt like freedom. If you enjoyed this crazy Karen story, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next wild HOA drama.